Hello, everybody, and welcome to Untethered.tv. I'm your host and founder, Rob Woodbridge. This is the place you come to each and every week to understand how mobile is impacting, affecting, and actually can benefit your business. And it's such an important piece, that benefit part, the revenue part, whether it's actually generating new revenue or it's actually reaching out to existing customers and managing those relationships, or it's changing your business altogether, the processes within your business. And we're going to be talking about that today. This is a big topic. Customer relationship management, business process management, all of that kind of stuff is so important. And mobile, for the first time, I think, is that great equalizer that enables those relationships beyond what you guys are doing right now. So who better to talk to than a company right in the middle of this? Now, there's a few things that we're going to get out of this. One of them is we're going to start to understand this whole CRM. We're going to understand this whole BPM world when it comes to mobile. But we're also going to take a little bit of a detour around and talk about what it means to go and sell into enterprise and that convincing portion, being able to convince enterprises to buy into this mobile space and buy into this space. So really interested. As most of you know, that's where I come from, that enterprise place. So I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic to have Steve Kraus, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Pega Systems. Steve, man, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Nice to be here.
Well, my absolute pleasure. My first question to you is, listen, you're in Boston, right? Oh, you know what? I did not show this to you, and I'm going to totally interrupt this because, booyah! You see that little, oh, you don't even see it. It's the Yankees. It is my Yankees flag that flies behind me. But you know what? You can actually laugh at me because they did so well in the playoffs, didn't they?
This conversation is over.
See, I can't tell people that I'm a Yankees fan from Boston until I've got them on camera. And they're like, oh, I got to go.
Well, we didn't have a very good year. So
no, it's okay.
We can't complain either.
Well, you know what? Terry Francona, the old manager, obviously, the one who brought, I don't know, pride back to Boston and then was unceremoniously dumped. He's an old Montreal Expo baseball player, and that was my team. So when the Expos folded, I had to go to the Yankees. Unfortunately, yeah, they just happened to clash. And I was at Game 1 of the American League Championship Series when the Yankees went up 3-0 in the series before Boston stormed back and won that and the World Series. So,
well, hey, we're still living off that one.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on from Boston. And why don't you tell, now that we've got the baseball out of this, why don't you talk about what Pega Systems is, and then we're going to dive into some meat because there's lots of it here.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah. So Pega Systems is actually very interesting. Pega Systems has been around for almost 30 years now.
30 years.
Really got its foundation working with some of the largest companies in the world, like Citibank and Kaiser Permanente, and up in your neck of the woods, RBC and TD Bank. And so really what we did was we were able to take those core processes that these companies had and really start to allow them to model them around their business. So in the old world, everyone would take a whole set of these big, giant requirements. They would hand them to their IT partners, and they'd say, I need you to write all this code to do all these things. And so from Pega's perspective, we're able to, you no longer have to do that. Literally, the business people go into the software, they define how they want it to work. And in the end, the ultimate goal is you improve the customer experience, and then you're also able to automate your operations. So net, it's good for the customer, and it's good for the business.
You know, we hear a lot about this, and we'll talk about some of the, the challenges of moving in and selling into enterprise. Like 30 years is a long time, so it's not like you were just born yesterday and trying to convince somebody to buy your new software.
I haven't been here 30 years. So
you look great. You look great for being there. Like, did you start as like a 6-year-old? Is that? But the company has been around for 30 years, so it's evolved. But even as the technology landscape and demands shift, and people start carrying these smart devices, and you start building new product for the new times, it becomes a challenge. I must assume it becomes a challenge to sell into the enterprise. We're going to talk about that in a second. But when I hear things like, this is an enterprise solution. You walk in, now there's no more IT involvement. It's just your sales guys or your workers that go in and modify the rules that they need to modify in order to be able to do the things that they need to do. It's very up in the sky, right? Like, does something like that exist? I always think like there's always got to be a whole lot of custom work behind the scenes to be able to get this done. Is that the case with Pega, or is it really just kind of drop it in, get it working?
No, so I think anytime you're deploying the enterprise,
yeah,
every enterprise by default is a bit different than the other enterprise.
Yes.
So the way we actually work with our enterprise customers is we have a core set of the platform itself, which is the core that enables you, again, to do things like directly capture your business objectives in the system without writing code, easily define, where your integration touch points are and automate those. And in the end, really deliver a user experience that guides the end user, whether it's a customer service rep, whether it's a marketing person, whether it's an operations person, through their day-to-day business. And the way we've always realized is we deliver that core capability. And then on top of that, we give them a whole set of assets that's designed, for example, to run their call centers, or to, again, run their marketing operations, or to run their Salesforce automation operations, or their claims processing in healthcare, or disputes in financial services. So we give them those assets to do it. But one thing is fairly consistent. Almost every enterprise, immediately after they want to deploy or what they want to deploy, they need to change because there's new regulations, there's new products, there's new channels like mobile and social. So really one of the key things is that we can facilitate them to become very agile and then deliver a personalized experience for those customers, but also do it in a way that takes all these old manual activities that they had to do that were very expensive, result in a lot of errors, and really look for ways to automate those.
Yeah, enterprises are a beast, aren't they? When you get into there and you kind of, what seems like a simple, I love there's naive business owners out there that think, all we have to do is sell into the enterprise, right? It's okay. And when I talk to them, I say, selling into the enterprise, if you're a good company, an established company, from the time you start to the time you close to the time you get paid, that could be 18 months. It could be 24 months. It could be 36 months. Do you have that kind of cash flow kicking around? Is that what it's like for you guys? 30 years is a long time. So obviously you've passed that cash flow crunch of a startup. Sure. But still, is that the cycle that you're talking about, or is it a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, no, it's that way. But I'll say the way we've actually seen it and it's matured is you want to sell strategically and say, look, this is the way you want to transform your business. Yeah. But you have to deploy tactically. You have to pick off, this is the business problem. This is how you solve it. But what we found in a lot of customers, and this is kind of comes to the root of BPM, is once I can solve this tactical problem, I can just go say, okay, well, let me apply it over here a little differently, or apply it over here a little differently. And kind of what we talk about is like layer on that specialization as opposed to starting and recreating it over and over. So more and more we're seeing people say, hey, look, I'm bought into the concept of a whole new way to do a business process. But first way I want to do that is let me prove how, again, you can make my call center rep more productive with it. And then I'll take the next project on. But I'm getting this massive amount of reuse that I can do across those.
All right. Well, that, you see, that is one piece of advice when it comes to selling in the enterprise. We jumped a little bit ahead. We will come back to these because they are important. And I've got some of my own perspective that I'm going to compare notes with Steve around going into the enterprise as well. But so Pega, if you're interested, go to pega.com and we're going to be talking much more about Pega in a second. But I'm interested in your background as well, because it really helps in kind of showing where you come from, so that the viewers, listeners, watchers can actually understand that you have that expertise, that ability to actually be able to talk about this with authority. So what is your background, Steve?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I have been in the CRM market for quite a long time, deploying CRM solutions to people. And I actually have an interesting background because I started on the professional services side. I did a lot of selling, and now I'm on the marketing and product strategy side. And I always joke that evolution happened because I really enjoyed deploying it, but then I got a little frustrated that the sales rep would sell stuff that was hard to deploy. So I said, well, why don't I go sell it? And then I complained so much sometimes about what the product would do when I would sell it that they say, well, why don't you tell us what to build? So then I'd go into that, and that's how I ended up. So I do have a lot of experience not only selling it, but actually dealing with how you actually implement this in a lot of these large enterprises across, whether it's healthcare or, consumer products or communications industry. So it's you learn a lot, and every customer and enterprise is a little bit different.
The greatest general managers or restaurant owners started doing dishes, right? Started in the restaurant at dishes, and then went on to a prep chef, and then a sous chef, and then they cooked, and they were a waiter and a bartender and a busboy and a host, and then all of a sudden they had all of the worldly experience to be able to make the decisions as a restaurant owner or a general manager or manager, right? It's kind of like what you did, isn't it? You just went to every post.
Well, it's exactly. I always think the great thing about you never forget how the users use it, and that's the key. Whether it's a customer or whether it's an employee, you always got to keep that perspective in the end that you're trying to make somebody do something easier, make them more productive, etc. And if you keep coming back to that, I find you always have the right perspective, and you're always adding value to these organizations.
It's one thing to work inside of an organization, right? And sell a product like what you're doing with Pega, and sell a solution, what you're doing with Pega. It's another thing to as you said, to be on that receiving end and be a user, because mm-hmm. I know that in my experience, there's always that tension between the user and the software, right? There just is. It doesn't matter how much user interface or user experience testing you do. There's always going to be a tension. There's going to be that tension. So, how do you guys build for that tension and build for the user that really puts it in their hands to be able to do things that they need to do?
Yeah, so I think one of the first things that's really important is I think the model has completely changed. There used to be this very waterfall-esque model that I would spend all this time, go off on the side. Literally, the business would define these requirements, and then they'd kick it over to IT, and IT would translate what they thought they meant, and then they'd deliver it back, and the user would say, oh boy, this isn't what I meant. And the developer would say, look, that's what you wrote on page 642 in this requirements document.
True.
So now what we've seen is a much more agile approach to that. Is literally the business and the technology folks sit down and collaborate. And because the technology has come so far, they can literally sit there and say, this is what I want the user experience to look like. This is how it's going to impact me. And then what I find is they deploy a lot faster and are willing to continually take an agile approach where they'll deploy, get feedback, and change. Deploy, get feedback, and change. Because software isn't about this hard-coded thing anymore. It's about literally taking user feedback, say, yeah, that button should be blue instead of green. We didn't think about that. So it's a continued evolution. That's a lot of what we see with our enterprise customers is they've accepted, let me get it out, get the feedback, and make it better, and constantly be doing it. It's a changing approach.
That is quite a departure from the old enterprise SAP challenges, right? Where, we're going to deploy, it's going to cost millions, and it's going to take us a couple of years to get in there, and the outcome is going to be what you agreed on 2.5 years ago, right?
Right.
So did the enterprises bring this change to you? Did you bring this change to the enterprises, and was it hard to sell into them?
Yeah, no, I think we still it depends on the enterprise you're selling to, because it's hard to adopt change. Just like, again, if you think about developers, they went from waterfall to agile, and they had to change the way they thought. Mm-hmm. But it was we had the CIO from United Health Group spoke at our Pega World recently, and he said, you used to have to be careful because it would take so long to deliver something that you might actually deliver what the business asked for because you were 2 years later and everything had changed by the time you delivered it. So it's definitely been a change in the process. But certain organizations get it, and the ones that do and embrace it, they see this incredible partnership between their technology teams and their business teams.
And that's a difference, because 100% of the time they win when that happens, right? And I think that's one of the key things, is that they win when they partner with their software developers to be able to get what they want out of it. But it must put some strain, or does it put some strain on an organization like Pega when there is that kind of, you have multiple customers and big customers, and they're all saying, hey, we need a tweak here, we need this tweaked here, we need this tweaked here. I mean, does it put some strain on your infrastructure to be able to accommodate this?
You know what? The software for us has been, built from the ground up to do that. That's exactly what, when you think about a BPM system, it was really built to eliminate coding and start to let people do business things in a business way. But what I find with these enterprises is what's most important is proof. So we can go to them and say, let me show you what someone like, our customer base has done, like a Kaiser Permanente or a United Health Group or an RBC or an Expedia or et cetera. These people that have adopted it, we can show them these returns that they're getting and how they're able to transform their business. That's when people really say, this is really important. I really want to learn more about how to do that. And that's where we have the most success, quite frankly. They like to understand how their peers are adopting it, what those benefits are.
Yeah, nothing is better than a warm lead or a proof, and it's the proof is absolutely important, especially when you're talking about numbers and implementation like you are. So, how do you define this world of BPM? It's business process management, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean, right? It's such a it's a blanket term that is just so broad. It can mean so many things to so many different people. But what does it mean to you guys?
Yeah, so really, when we think about it, it's funny, our founder and our CEO, Alan Trefler, he hates the word BPM.
That's good.
Because he says it's really about business process automation.
Right.
It's not about managing a business process. It's looking for a way to improve it and automate it. And that's the key about what our software should be doing for companies out there. So that's really what we focus. But you're right. So what BPM really will serve as the platform is, again, letting people take ordinary things that they want to do in their business. Again, whether it's process a claim. I'll give you an example of if you fly into Heathrow Airport, Pega's business process technology actually determines what gate you park at, how long it stays there, how much time it's going to take to fuel that plane, when the catering company should come to put the food on board and how much it needs it. So it literally is about how do I manage that process much more efficiently. So, we're getting, and then you see results in the Heathrow example, you see things like on-time departures go up. So in places like, and if you go to Heathrow, you'll all appreciate that.
No kidding.
So a lot of that from a business process perspective, it is managing a lot of those core, again, think of large credit card companies, you think about dispute resolutions, and a lot of large healthcare companies, you think about claims processing. We think about communications providers, like your cell phone providers, about order fulfillment. If you think about car dealers or car producers, it's about warranty management. So what we find is business process will enable you to do so many things across your enterprise in a different way that what we'll do is we'll go help them. Again, we have customer service frameworks on top of the core business process that says, here's how you should build your call center. Here's how you should run your marketing automation applications. Here's how you should run your Salesforce automation applications. Here's how you should process claims. So business process is this incredible capability that you can really apply to change and automate anything you do in your business that just wasn't possible before.
So, obviously this has come of age during this electronic world. The company's 30 years old, so that kind of puts it in 1980, right at the beginning of the desktop revolution.
That's right.
Yeah. And then, so it's gone through these different phases, right? So the 80s was the desktop revolution. It wasn't connected. It wasn't networked. In the 90s, it became, early 90s, it was networked. Late 90s, it was the internet, and into 2000s. And now what we're in the middle of is this mobile revolution. Everybody's carrying devices, and maybe I'm not going to ask you to give us a snapshot from where you were as a desktop in the desktop world, but what has the impact of this mobile piece, the fact that we carry these computers in our pocket, had on a business like you guys? Because it must now shift everything away from these big screens that we're looking at to I want to do everything from these devices. And especially, we use the Heathrow example. When is it? US Air is now bringing iPads in instead of manuals, right? So now everything is becoming electronic, and once they're in there, you start to think of 1,000 different uses of it. So how is mobile really impacted BPM?
Yeah, so the interesting part about for most of our customers has come, they've lived through these waves of things. The web was in a huge wave that people started doing. Social was another huge wave. There's regulations, about how we run our businesses and how we do things, the massive consolidation. We're in this incredible world of change that's always happening. And so from our perspective, that's what BPM was designed to do, was to say, if you're changing and your business is changing, how do you manage it? So from a mobile perspective, a couple lessons learned we've seen is, when you went back to the web and people started going to web self-service and doing huge amounts of things on the web, there were some lessons learned that people would take all this content they had in their company and they would hire these e-commerce teams or these e-teams, or put the E in front of everything, right? And they would recreate all the core content they had internally for their website. They wouldn't take the internal stuff and modify it or reuse it. They would recreate that stuff. And so the same thing, a lot of companies that talk to us, they have the same fear about mobility. And mobile is, they want all the benefits of things that mobile can do, a different way to present things, way to use things like location to your benefits, way to transition from your mobile device to your computer to your TV. They want to do this, but they want to do it in a much more rational way that says, let me take the way I'm going to treat a customer today. Maybe it's whether they call the call center. And then let me just specialize that and take advantage of presenting it on a device. So I want to use the same process, but at a certain point, I'll say, wait a second, that person just walked into the store or walked into the branch or is standing in the airport or their airbag just went off. Let me actually treat them different, whether it's just the presentation of it on the mobile device, or let me make them an offer, or let me say, hey, we've noticed you're here. Would you like this? So we've really started to say, take this same process that you're using, how you want to treat a customer, but say, oh, the customer's on their mobile device. Let me treat them a slight bit different, in the display and in the content, et cetera. But don't recreate it. Don't maintain these big silos of information, because in the end, it's expensive and it's bad for the customer, because the customer has a very inconsistent experience.
It's interesting because a lot of talk. Maybe I'm going to take a little bit of a sidetrack here, but a lot of talk around the mobile space is obviously around location-based marketing. You brought it up, right? This is the the goal. Location is now just like dial tone. It's in everything. It's in every photo we take. It's
Sure.
It's everywhere. So now the question that I have is there are probably, and I don't exaggerate here, 1 billion companies that are vying for helping large enterprises and retailers predominantly increase in-store conversion rates, increase footfall traffic, drive people into the store, do real-time whatever couponing discounts, which is ridiculous, but all of those things that these companies are trying to do. What you're talking about is like a solution like Pega into a store can assist in the automation of that process, right? Like, so are those companies infringing on you guys? Are you going to crush them? Or is it like a partnership that works well? And I'm intrigued by this, especially around the location-based piece.
Yeah. So the way Pega essentially works, to be very simple, is Pega will go grab context, whether it's within Pega's data sources or whether it's locational information that's stored inside the company somewhere else or outside the company. We'll then say, okay, based on that context, here's what I want to do with it. I want to make an offer. I want to service them a certain way. I want to make sure I retain them. So it'll take that context, it'll manage it through a process, and then it will present it or deliver it in the right channel or on the right device based on that context. So for us, some of these people we're going to crush. Some of these people are actually good for us because they'll own some of the context that will help facilitate a better, smarter process that we'll consume. And some of them will probably work next to or go away.
Yeah.
So to your point, we talk a lot about, so we have one of our solutions called Next Best Action Marketing. And so our Next Best Marketing does exactly that. It grabs real-time context, location being one. There's a lot of other things, like from a company perspective, what product has the best margin, what customer is most likely to buy it. There's a combination of things, which location is one. And then we actually drive it through what we call a decision engine, a decision hub. And the decision hub says, based on these contexts, this is the right action to take for this customer in this situation, and deliver it on this device or channel, whether it's a mobile device, whether it's email. And even a lot of times it will be guiding a call center rep through the experience in the call center to recommend the right product to you. So, that's one example. But a lot of those companies will serve as partners, and some of them probably think they might be competitors.
I mean, it's very interesting around this, simply because when you think about this kind of greenfield that is happening in the mobile space, where companies are kind of arriving on the scene and walking into a large enterprise, like a retail enterprise or a restaurant or anybody, saying like, I can help you. I just need to recreate your data, right? And I need to do it in the mobile space. One of the biggest criticisms around this is that large companies. How big is Pega? Like, I mean, employees like that.
Yeah, Pega's about 2,000 employees.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a medium-sized company, right?
Yeah.
But so it's probably a little bit more agile than the larger companies that we all like to make fun of, because they're monoliths and they take a long time to just turn over here where everybody's facing, and then by the time they're over there, it's like everybody's facing back over here. But even a mid-sized company like Pega, you think that we always ask when we talk about the location world is, where are these companies? Why aren't they getting into it? Why aren't they moving faster than this? And it takes some time, doesn't it? So these little companies get in there and they start hammering away, and they're like, hey, we're creating the market, we're creating the market, we're creating the market, we're creating the market. And then bigger, mid-sized and large companies come in and say, okay, thank you. Now, those are our customers. Get out of the way so that we can actually provide enough value to them without having to recreate the wheel, right?
Yeah, so we see that. So more importantly for us is our customers are, Fortune 500. So we see a lot of this, this challenge that how they're adapting. And what we see more than ever actually is because customers are driving change, because the pace of these devices and what you can do with them. And we are seeing a lot of these companies now, they aren't waiting and say, I'm not doing anything. They'll say, well, let me apply it to this area of my business. So let me apply it to this product. And let me apply it to this, particular use case. And so what we're seeing is they're really starting to dip their toes in the water in these things. And so you see, again, insurance companies where I can log a claim, I can take a picture of my accident, I can open up the case, and I can send it right through. Where, even the banks now, I can take a picture of my check, not go to the ATM. So we're really starting to see them adapt it. But what we're seeing when we talk to our customers is they're trying to do it in a way that, again, it's a very customer-centric way. And let me think about how I want to interact with Rob. And then let me think about how I want to interact a little bit differently with Rob, because I know Rob's carrying his iPhone with him. As opposed to stepping back and be like, put mobile on the left, put traditional on the right. Let me think about how Rob's going to do business with us. And guess what? Rob's going to come to the web, he's going to use his iPhone, and he's going to call the call center. 70% of what we're going to do is the same content, but because Rob is on his iPhone, again, let him take a picture of his car that's damaged and kick off the claims process that way. So we're definitely seeing that.
And what's the impact of that? When you start to do those things from a customer standpoint, where you start to integrate the technology that they're carrying with them to facilitate something, like to basically remove obstacles or roadblocks. I mean, I am old enough to remember when banks were closed on the weekends, right? They closed, they were open only during business hours. So if you were actually in business, you could never get to the bank, right? And you had to take out as much money as you could on a Friday to make it through the whole weekend. And there was no such thing as debit cards. And when you went to the grocery store, it was cash, or you didn't get your groceries, right? So I remember those times, and those were inconvenient times, right? Never to be seen again with the ease and access of which we can get cash. So, but how, how important, or how did this progress like this, where customers are now, or companies are now starting to think like their customers. They're starting to enable things because we carry these devices. Was that the catalyst here?
Well, I think so, and I think it's interesting that these companies and customers are not so diverse. So everyone that works at the company is also a customer of somebody else.
Right. That's important.
So all these people that work in these companies are carrying their own devices. So at some point it hits you and say, boy, this is so easy to do. Let me think about the way we're doing it with our product. Really, we should be doing it this way. So I think a lot of it, these devices and social channels are the same way, right? When I can read a review and write a review, and I can go to Google and find the answer to my question, right? It's really, I think, has stimulated some of these enterprises to say, look, there's a whole new way to do business. I do it. My 6-year-old does it. Why can't we do these things? So I think the pace of change has picked up so quickly, and people have gotten used to it. They understand that if they don't do it this way, they're going to start to lose business to somebody else, even if they have a better product and a better price. And if they can't make it more convenient for somebody to do business with them, they're going to lose customers. And I think that's really driving a lot of their, that's a lot of their motivation.
And was it? Do you think it was the fact that mobile took the world by storm, that kind of forced organizations to kind of look at it and force them to think differently about how they interact with their customers, or was it something else?
No, I think there's a combination of I think the web started this because that was one evolution of it, was saying, hey, look, someone might actually want to do business with me without talking to somebody. They might at 11 at night go on their computer and sign up for something or buy something or read a review about something. And I think what has happened with mobile is it's just taken it to the next level. It's, we laugh about it, but if someone asks you a question and you don't know it, you're like, hold on a minute.
My brain.
Right? And you pick up your mobile device and you pick your search engine and you get the answer to that question. Yeah. There's no concept of, oh, geez, that is a good question. I really wonder what the answer is.
I'm going to think about it, and then I'm going to go home, and I'm going to look through an encyclopedia, and I'm going to ask a bunch of people, and I'll get back to you in a week or two.
I'll write you a letter back.
Yeah, exactly. I'll send you, I'll put a stamp on it, and I'll send it off to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we joke, but I mean, that's what it was like. That is absolutely what it was like. But it just, the catalyst has always been around this digital plane, even with the web. A lot of companies didn't get the web right. I think banks got the web right. They understood the reason to do that. But a lot of other companies didn't. And I think that the wake up call really was this mobile piece, right, where you can install a CRM, a customer relationship management piece, now into a stadium, right, where once you couldn't do that before, but now they started doing the lower bowl in a hockey arena where you would get at seat service, right, which was pretty cool. But then now all of a sudden you are entitled now. Each ticket has a $75 voucher on it, and you can pre-order your food at a specific time through your smartphone, and then when you get there and you're welcomed and you get a free shirt, whatever it is that this happens, is like there's a certain level now of expectation that these companies are doing this through these devices. Are your customers feeling that now?
Oh, sure they are, because people have to realize that it's just now literally anytime you go to do something, if I need directions somewhere, if I need information on something, and even the concept, it used to be, I always laugh because if you thought about the old way you used to communicate, you thought about the phone that hung on your wall, you thought about the desktop that sat on your desktop, and then you thought about, your typewriter writing a letter somewhere else. Literally, if you want to communicate with somebody, channels go away when you pick up that mobile phone, because literally I search the web, I go to somebody's website, I may IM with them, and embedded in there may be a phone number that if I need to talk to somebody, I call it. So this diversion of computer on an email, with the phone hanging on the wall, with text. It's all right here. And you may all do it in one simple interaction. You cover all of these in one place. It's changed.
But there's that, and we expect it. And as you said, I love that, because if you're a customer somewhere, you're also you might be working for an organization, and there always seems to me like there's a big disconnect. It's like, you know, when I'm a customer and I expect something to work the way it should, or in a specific way that makes sense, and I go and I say, you know, this should work this way. That person looks at me like I'm crazy, but then they're going to go off later on that day or tomorrow or the next day and have the same experience, and they're going to walk up to somebody like I did to them, and they'll say, oh, you know, this really should work this way, and that person will look like them, like they're crazy. And I think that this is the cycle that we get into. But all of a sudden, these things have just made it so that, listen, you know, this experience is going to be, as you said, unified. I can do anything from this that it used to take me months to do in any other way, including sticking a stamp on a letter when I wanted to get angry. Okay, so what about so mobile has obviously played a huge role in this, and that evolution from CRM into how did your CEO call it? Business process automation.
Automation.
And that's really what I mean, mobile excels at. Location, when you start to take context in everything, you know, location, time of day, weather, spending patterns, what else could it do that would actually allow you to make a better assumption from that consumer? There's probably 13 or 14 levers here that now you have access to, whereas once you didn't, right?
That's exactly right. You know, even things like purchase history, geography, income, age, gender, right? This is all things that are deciding how you should treat them. You know, status, you know, loyalty status. I'm platinum. I've been, you know, customer 13 years.
Yeah.
All these things, they come to light right at that point where you're gonna, you know, maybe service them, maybe make them an offer, try to sell them something, and you know, your systems have to be able to keep up with what a mobile device can do now. And that's the key, where we see a lot of people having discussions with us and saying, hey, look, they can think of a lot of use cases for mobile. Mm-hmm. And in the old world, a lot of people could always think of reasons why they couldn't do it. You know, I can't do it because I have to migrate data. I can't do it because I have to create all this new content. I can't do it because there's all these compliance concerns, and I can't have a legal notice on a device this small. You know, so they always thought of all these reasons they couldn't do it. But what we found now is we're having these conversations with people, again, because they can take this common process and say, okay, let me tweak it for a mobile device. And because the system's smart enough to take that context and literally in real time evaluate the 15 different criteria and say, look, in the end, I really want to maximize the value of this customer over their lifetime relationship with my company. And based on that, what's the right thing to do for them right now? And that's where we're seeing it. And what's the best way for me to deliver it? Maybe it's on their mobile phone with a follow-up with an email. Maybe it's, I'm going to call them. Maybe it's over Twitter. So we're really seeing that converging.
Yeah, you know, I always have this, you know, on the web, it used to be, you know, one of the biggest metrics where you would actually judge and you could customize messaging for, you know, aside from location, which was generic anyways, and time of day and all those kind of things, was, you know, where you clicked, what the refer website was, right? So it's like where you came here from could tell us a lot about what you want from us here. And I think that mobile, for the first time, we made, it's a privacy issue right now, but at some point it's not going to be, where you essentially have that refer, that click through from, because of mobile. You saw where they came from. So if you're Nordstrom, and you know, maybe not, if you're Target and you just came from Walmart, they know you're on a shopping, you know, you can make some more assumptions around that, right? So
you mean business.
Yeah, like that. And then the previous one could have been in Nordstrom, right? So you're like, boom, boom, boom. Okay, you were in a shopping mode. We're gonna change the way that we talk. And I think that's part of that has to be part of what you guys bring to these organizations.
Well, yeah, and I think that the challenge right now is there's so much data. You know, I mean, just all these things, they're generating so much data. What we really let people do is apply an intelligent process to take advantage of that, because you can't use all of it all the time. So what people talked about us about is say, first of all, how do you make that data smarter? And for us, we apply things like predictive analytical models. So we'll look for patterns in the data. So you don't have to go to 13 things. You can say, this is the one thing that's most important in that situation. And then we'll apply it in a process that, again, says, at this point, these guys are going to buy, and they're most likely to buy this. Recommend that. And display it in this way on their mobile device. So you know what? It's easy to click on and easy to fulfill. So we're seeing a lot of that. That how do you filter through all this context, do the right thing at the right time, and deliver it in a way that's convenient for the end user to actually take advantage of that.
I mean, it's like it's almost too perfect, right? That's the challenge that we're facing right now. Is that, and you know, when I talk to a lot of companies, it's about making sure that you know what your one metric is, that one piece of data that is going to move your business, and discard the rest. And if you don't use that data, don't collect it.
That's right. And that we're seeing this shift. Again, it might be overplayed, but we talk a lot about, customer centricity. It's actually take a different model again, and let's think about someone in their lifetime, how they interact with your company, and how do you make it easy, and how do you make it convenient, and how do you do the right thing at the right time from? Because most companies started the opposite. The old way was I had a catalog of products, and I'm always just going to push them to you. But in this world now where people can filter through so many things, can get referrals from so many people, you really just have to think about, how does this customer want to do business with my company? And how do I make it easy and straightforward? Oh, and by the way, in the end, it's got to result in profit. But this old way of pushing all this irrelevant stuff against to a customer and making them sort through it, customers have too many choices now, and it just won't. Businesses that do that will not thrive. That's the way we can say it.
Well put. Very politically correct. They won't thrive.
Yeah.
What he means by that, and I will throw this in, is that they won't survive, right? And that's
right.
That's the disruptive nature of what we're talking about. And whether this is enabled through mobile or not, whatever the next generation of technology that comes through it, today it's a small screen. It's the tablets that are making these things work. And I think that whatever the reason that we're seeing this happen, it is a long time coming. Whatever the catalyst was, some people say it was the iPhone, right? Some people say it was the BlackBerry. Some people say it was the iPad or any kind of tablet or the PC or the desktop or the laptop, whatever it is. It's not going to go back to the way that it was. Whatever it is, it has given the consumer a certain level of expectation. And if you don't meet that level of expectation, be prepared for disruption. And ultimately, I don't want to be too morose, but like destruction, crushing. All right, let's leave those folks who are listening or watching some ideas on where they can start. How do they start in this world? Because this is a daunting task. We've given them a couple of hints here, right? We've given them find your metric, find that one piece of data that you want to collect, and then collect that data and then use it to advance or enhance your customers' experience with your business. But what are some other things, some other ways that they can implement this whole CRM, this business process automation concept to their business if they're thinking about it now and they haven't even explored it yet?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges is there's so much potential that how do you pick the right thing to do first?
Starting is the hardest thing.
That's right. And then you know what, we've been, with people that have been around and doing software for a long time and customers and vendors, we're so burnt by this concept of whatever I spend all this time developing and I deploy, I'm locked into it. And so that the whole mindset is really have to change. So really, I think the most important thing is you get things out that are impactful, that are going to drive results for your business, that are consumable, but you understand that you're going to change it. We talk a lot about champions and challenger strategy. So this is the way I want to deploy it and have it run in my business. But at the same time, for 10% of my people, I want to test a strategy or a way to do business like this. And I see how that works. If that's effective, I start to promote that to the champion, and then I put another challenger in place. So I'm constantly taking this agile approach to how do I improve my enterprise. It, literally from a person that came from the consulting world, everything was about this massive go live, and it intimidated people so much, and some people are still used to that the world has changed. You pick the right group, pick the right business benefit, pick the right things to get, deploy it quickly, learn your lessons, and then expand it and adjust it. Because if you try to do this big bang, what you'll end up is it'll be too scary, it'll take too long, and you'll never get lives. Yeah, you really have to be building for change, building for agility.
That's great advice, and you alluded to it before. Is that you moved into the enterprise, and this is what I found selling to the enterprise is that you move into the enterprise piece by piece. You don't go and sell the enterprise this huge installation. You go in and prove to them that your piece of software, whatever it may be, your app, your enterprise play, can actually help move their business, help solve a problem that they know that they have. And whether it's something that costs them money today, and you can save them money by bringing in your solution, or it actually leads to more sales and more loyalty, for example, you have to prove that. And that's one of the key things, isn't it? So start small, get in there, and then start to expand testing at all times. Is that?
That's exactly right. And for us, that's the model. And I think the world has changed post, a few years back and recession is, you used to be about, hey, look, we spend 9 months and go through some kind of evaluation. And we try to tell people, like, look, it's less expensive. Get in there, you try it, you deploy it, you get business benefit, go to the next one. Try it, deploy it, get business. And guess what? Every time you do that, you've got a couple different things. One, you got a lot of lessons learned. And the second thing, you've got a set of core assets that you're just building on top of. You're not starting over and recoding. You're literally starting to build this core set of assets that every project you do, you can do it faster because you know what you're doing a little more. And the technology says, well, let me take this piece and plug it in over here and just move it a little bit. And so literally that's, we're seeing that a very big change in how we deploy. And let's face it, mobile devices, I mean, just think about how fast they've changed it, or social communication styles, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or even using Amazon, etc. The people need to know that is probably going to shift again a lot sooner than later. So they need to be preparing themselves that, again, if they are thinking big bang, change everything at once, that's just not going to work for them anymore.
That's sound advice. Simply put, is that if your deployment, and that's what I mean. Waterfall was like that, right? Where it was a long deployment cycle. But agile, you think about agile, from a development standpoint. But I think about it as agile marketing, as an agile everything. And as long as you keep that in mind, you're never going to get down a path where you have gone so far off from where everybody else is going, and it's impossible to get you back to the other side. It doesn't work that way anymore. So, the worst thing you can do is go through. My last story is that one of my last companies that we actually went after, enterprise customers, because that's where we kind of decided we needed to be, and. We had a product that did 700 things, and trying to sell a thing that does 700 things into an organization that, that does all 700, but you can't visualize that. So we narrowed the focus and went in we knew that their pain point was, and it was a simple pain point, and it didn't cost them a lot of money to get up and running, and they went out and implemented, and then they went enterprise. The other side of it was that before that, we spent 9 months with Raytheon, went through that whole process of selling them and visiting them and pitching them and going up the chain, only to have their discretionary budget, kiboshed. And guess what? That 9 months that we put into it, kiboshed as well. We were selling too high, too lofty, and too complicated.
Right.
So I'm with you on this.
Yeah, it's the same. That is the exact situation. But it's almost hard for people that have been through it to believe.
Yeah.
That when you tell them, hey, look, let's deploy this. If you don't like it, we'll change it. Because to them, what that used to mean was, again, if I want to change it, I write a spec. The famous change order comes out, right? I kick it over, and then I may or may not get what I want.
True.
And so now that the whole world has changed, the business deploys it. If they don't like it, the business goes and changes it and makes the update and deploys it. it's just a much different approach to do that from, and it really comes back to being agile about it all.
Well, that's beyond mobile. It's beyond everything. But all right. So where do we send people now, Steve, to find out more information?
Yeah. So if people want to find out more information, I would recommend they come to pega.com, www.pega.com. And so when people can come to that, it's very easy to navigate. They can, depending on their focus areas, if they're really focused on the customer experience, it'll be very easy. If they're very focused on operational excellence or automation, it's very easy. And then right within there, if they're very focused on mobile, there's a page right there focused on mobile and mobile strategies and how they can do things different. So we'd be happy to have people follow up and learn some more.
This is great. So for those who are interested, go to pega.com, pega.com. Steve, I really appreciate you taking some time here. Maybe business process management isn't the appropriate term. Business process automation is what these guys are doing. If you have any more questions about this, just reach out. Go to pega.com. But this has been a primer on the evolution of CRM and business process management. This is an important piece. The thing is that it doesn't have to be complicated. Start doing something, do something simple. Like, it's the same way that a human being in the morning says good morning, in the afternoon says good afternoon, and the evening says good evening, right? Is that you say hello when you see somebody for the first time and goodbye when you walk out the door. That is business process automation, right? It is part of you, but those simple touches done on a device, just start to facilitate that. Start thinking about how you can, implement the simplest of things that just move your customers down a path to purchase. That's it. And if you're selling into the enterprise, think about what Steve said here, which is really, 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 really important, which is go in there and prove yourself. Go in there and start and tweak and change and manipulate and do those things. Become agile inside of an enterprise, and they'll love you for it. And once you prove them once, my guess is that they're going to keep coming back to you for more and more because you're helping their business. Is that a good way to summarize this?
Rob, that's great. Even for Yankees fans, that was pretty impressive.
Well, I'm just saying your words, right? So this is a Yankee fan regurgitating a Boston fan. Well, yeah. So it's okay if you can still think that Boston or Yankee fans still drag their knuckles on the ground because yeah, I'm just regurgitating your words. Steve, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Great, Rob. It was great chatting with you. Have a great night.
You too. We've been speaking with Steve Kraus, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Pega Systems. Go to Pega Systems. Go to pega.com, which is Pega Systems, or go to pegasystems.com. And I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, reach out. Let me know how you find these episodes, how you are finding these episodes. Are you enjoying them? Are you finding value? Please, untether@gmail.com or rob@untether.tv. I respond to all emails that come in. But I will be back for another episode of this next week. So thanks for watching, everybody. Steve, thanks, man.
Take care.